Hi all, I'm going to try to keep this video short so that you can get straight to the project. It's not a difficult project, but I'm hoping that you'll be able to complete both the project and the reflection today. If you weren't in class, then hopefully some of the other students will be able to help you. You should already have the HelloWorld project. I believe everyone has that at this point. Or sorry, the HelloWorld project and the main class, but some of you probably don't have the jar files that we added last time. And if you don't, you should be able to follow what we're about to do for the other jar files so that you are able to use them. And the first thing we're going to do is help us out, or help get you set up to be able to do one of the requirements for this project, which is to change the font of some of the labels that we're going to add. Now, to do that is pretty simple. If you just go to the Canvas page for the course, you're going to see that we have a you've already downloaded acm.jar and dialog.jar, but now I've got this new one called fontfinder.jar. And so if you go ahead and download that, and I will go ahead and do it as well. Just click it once, give it a second. It should, you'll see like a little whoop when it goes up to here in the top of Chrome, and you'll see that it is ready to go. From there, it's pretty simple. We can actually close Canvas at this point. Then we're going to go to IntelliJ and go to File, Project Structure, and then on the far left-hand side, you're going to go to Modules, and then Dependencies in the middle. And then I've already got ACM jar, and most of you should have it already. We're just going to add another one. So we click this plus button here, and we go to Jars or Directories. Now, this should be in your Downloads folder for now. Eventually, we're going to actually move these to a better place, but for right now, your Downloads folder is okay. And so once you find your Downloads folder, it should be right there, fontfinder.jar. Now, if you struggle to find it, you can type in the address bar right here to help you find it. For example, your address bar should say something like C:\users/ your initials and SSID / something something something. Now, if you change it to where it says downloads, then it will highlight the downloads folder right away, and so that you can find fontfinder.jar really easy. So make sure you've got fontfinder.jar selected, and then just go ahead and hit OK. And so now you should have the JDK you're using, this module source thing you don't need to worry about, and then ACM and fontfinder, and we can just hit OK. I'm tired. I'm sorry. So with that added in, we'll get back to it later. If you were not here in class last time, then you're going to notice we got these two lines up here at the top of the screen, and you could go ahead and pause the video and add these now that we've added the ACM jar file. If you haven't, or sorry, we added Font Finder, we added ACM jar last class. And so if you haven't added the ACM jar file yet, the process is exactly the same as what we just did. File, Project Structure, Modules, Dependencies, plus button, Jars or Directories, add acm.jar, which again, you can just download off of Canvas. Okay, after you've done that, you should be able to write these two lines above here to add the graphics program and glabel classes to our project. Once you've done that, you should be able to go modify your public class main line to include extends graphics program before the curly bracket. That makes it so that our class that we're writing, the main class, is an extension of the class that somebody else wrote, graphics program. And so we get all of the abilities of a graphics program. And in fact, main, the class we're writing, is a graphics program now, which gives it some useful abilities. Then down here in the main method, you'll notice that we have written one line to instantiate or to create an instance of the main class. Now again, the main class is a graphics program now, so we were able to call the start method on it, which is not a method that we wrote, it's in graphics program. So we start, so we're able to start this graphics program, and if I go ahead and test run my code right now, you can either click here and then run, and then in the future you can just push up here. we get this window, this blank window. And our project is going to be to put text all over this window and to change the font size and style and color. Okay, so now that we've all got that window working, and if you don't have the window working, find somebody that does and make sure it's good. But if your code is exactly what I've got here, and you could pause the video to check, you should be good to go. You'll also notice that if you were absent last time that we've deleted the variable exercise that we did here, but make sure you've turned in the variable exercise first so that I can give you points. Okay. Now, right at the very end of last class, we were at a rush, and I was trying to create a glabel instance to add to the screen, but it was right at the very end, and so we didn't really get to explain it or go over it at all, so I'm just going to start there. So to create an instance of glabel, really simple. We're just going to make a variable where the data type is glabel. So to make a variable, data type glabel. Cool. Then we have to give an identifier, and we just make that up. In class, I think I went with G, so I'll stick with G. You can name it whatever you want, though. Just make sure you remember that name in the next couple lines. So glabel G equals new glabel. Now, we went over last class how this is calling the constructor. We're basically calling up you could think of it like calling up a contractor and saying, hey, I need you to build me a glabel. And that contractor might just say, okay, got you, and do it. But that contractor could also ask you for building materials, which is what's happening here. That's why we've got this red underline. It's saying, hey, I can't make a glabel if you don't provide me with something. And that something, in the case of a glabel, is a string value. We're going to pass in a string literal, but you could get that value from any of the 5 sources for values that we talked about. But it wants a string literal. And so to get that, we're just going to type quotation marks. And as soon as we type those, you're going to see that it says S:. And we're going to find out where that S comes from later. But note that I didn't type it, and you shouldn't either. Just type the quotation marks, and it will automatically appear. It's something IntelliJ is doing to try to be helpful. We'll learn where that comes from on Friday when we go over how to write methods. Now, into those quotation marks, we can put whatever we want. I'm going to put hello world, but again, any text that you want is fine. Just make sure it goes in the quotation marks. It should turn green to indicate that you've done it correctly. Now, if I was to run my code again, which I'm not going to, actually, you know what? I will, just so you can see. We have created the glabel. It exists in our computer's memory, but since we never told M that we should draw the glabel on it, we don't actually see anything. So let's go ahead and change that. We want to make these objects interact with each other. Now, graphics program, which again, M may be a main, but because main is graphics program, M is also a graphics program. So we can take M and we can issue we can call its add method that it has. And the add method, again, a method is kind of like an action that the object can take. The add method could take no arguments or take no materials, but it kind of makes sense that in order to add something, you have to specify what you want to add. Now, what we want to add is G. Now, the add method's kind of cool because we can also put a comma, and then we can actually provide where to add G on the screen. And first I'm going to put 50, 50. And just like with the S, you're going to see a V and a V1. So don't write those, just write the 50 or the 50s, and those will appear automatically. If you run your program now, you should get some text that appears right in the upper left-hand corner. Now, for just a little bit more explanation about the 50 by 50, if we add G and we don't specify where to go, it's going to go to 0, 0, which is the top left-hand corner. I'm sure all of you are kind of familiar with the layout of a graph where you have the x-axis this way and the y-axis this way. But this is a little bit different. This is the x-axis this way, except we only have positive x going off to the right here. And we only have, and positive y for us is going down like this right here. So it's kind of like we have flipped a graph over. It's not, so again, it's not like a plus sign in the middle. The graph that we have is positive x this way and positive y going down. That's the only weird thing you have to know about this, is that positive y is down. So when we said that we wanted to go 50 by 50, what we actually said is we want to go 50 pixels to the right and 50 pixels down. And that right there is where we find that HelloWorld has started writing itself out. Pretty simple. So this is how to add a label and set its initial position. Cool. Now the assignment that I gave you is to create 3 more G labels beyond this one so that you'll have a total of at least 4. And then each G label is supposed to have its own position, which we've covered how to do. Each G label is supposed to have its own color, and each G label should have a different font. So let's tackle the color next. Now the thing is, it's actually pretty easy to set the color of a G label. You can just do g.setColor, which is a method that exists in our G label. So we address our G label object, which we named G. Your G labels that you create later will have different names. And you just say .setColor. So you're telling it to take the action of setting a color. It wants to be told what color to be set to. Now here's the thing. The computer doesn't actually have a concept of color. We have to import, we would either have to write one ourselves or import someone else's definition. So rather than write our own definition of color, because that could actually get complicated, we're going to go ahead and import an example of color from somewhere else. This one's actually built into the Java development kit that we downloaded. So for that, it's just going to be import java.awt.color, but with a capital C. There is a lowercase c color, so don't get confused between the two. You definitely want capital C color. And once we've imported that, this capital C color is a class that we can instantiate and create a new color object that we can provide for G to set its color. That might sound complicated, but it's actually going to be one line of code and it'll be pretty easy. So before I try to set the color, I have to create the color that I want to set. So to do that, I'm just going to create an instance of color. I'll call it my color. Maybe you should call it my color 1 because you're going to have multiple, but you can call it whatever you want. Color, my color, and then equals new color. So we're going to create a new instance of color. That's pretty easy to understand. Just like the glabel constructor, the color constructor wants some building materials, but it's not a string this time. For a color, you need at a minimum 3 numbers. And that's because we need a red, green, and blue value. You can also add a 4th number, which is A for alpha, which is transparency level, if you wish. Now, I've just put 000 because I'm going to show you this nifty feature that IntelliJ has. I could go in and modify these by changing the things to like red 255. That's the biggest number, which is just solid red. But IntelliJ has this nifty square off to the side, and if I click on that, I get a whole color picker, and it makes it really easy to just kind of go through. I'm going to pick kind of like a seafoamy green color right here. And you'll see that as I change it, it's automatically changing all of the numbers that are inside. Let's go a little darker. There you go. All of the numbers that are inside of here. And if I adjust the transparency slider, it will add the alpha number in for me, but I can get rid of it. It does 255 by default. So I've got this kind of dark seafoamish green, almost like the color of our play button. And now I've created a new color, and I've stored that data under the name my color. So when I go to set the color for the label, if I just tell it that the color I want to use is my color, and then I run my code, ta-da, my text is green. So now we know how to create a new instance of color, and we know how to change the color of a G label. Cool. Which leaves just one thing, which is how do I change the font? Well, just like there's a set color method that G labels have, we can also change the font of a G label. So first we just say its name. In this case, the name is G. Dot set font. Now this one's a little bit trickier because the fonts that you can choose from are kind of built into your computer, and not every font will work. And in order to tell it what font we want to do, we actually have to provide a string. And the string will have something like the font family, dash, and then the size that you want it to be at. So I'll do this example first. I'll just do Arial 32 to show you. And now we get Hello World, but much bigger. We can also, optionally, add in things like italic before the size. So your string says font family dash changes dash size, basically. Arial dash italic dot 32. And so now my text will be italic when this runs, which is pretty cool. You can also do bold, and you can also do bold italic. But you can't do underline, at least not with this particular graphics package. I'm going to go ahead and just leave it as italic, and that is how we change the font. Cool. But you might be wondering, well, how do I know what fonts my computer has? And that is where the font finder jar that we added at the beginning comes in. That is a package that I have created to print out all of your fonts for you. So we go font, or sorry, I think we have to import it first. Oh, so if we start writing it and it recognizes it like this and we autofill, it will import it for us. However, just in case it doesn't auto import, let's import it manually. So import com.fontfinder.common.fontfinder. That's a long one. That's the modernized version of the naming scheme for a Java package. These are a little bit older, and so they're a little bit different. But this is a package that I made to just really quickly and easily print all your fonts for you, like I said. So we'll do fontfinder.print fonts. That's it. Now, this is interesting case that we're going to talk about in the future. It has to do with the static keyword right here, where notice that font finder looks a lot like it must be a data type. It's capitalized like one anyway, like main or string or G label. But unlike the others, we didn't have to create an instance of font finder in order to get it to print the fonts. And again, that has to do with the static keyword. For now, I want you to just write this line of code, and we'll leave it alone until we can learn about how static works. It's not that hard to understand. I just don't want to oversaturate your brains right now. So now if I run my code, it's going to do all of this other stuff, but then it's also going to print out all of the different fonts that my computer supports. Let me go ahead and run that. There you go. So you're going to see that there's actually an awful lot of different fonts that are in here. Unfortunately, it doesn't show you what those fonts look like, so you're just going to have to experiment a bit. Not all of the fonts will actually work due to the limitations of the simplified graphics package that we're using, but you can just go ahead and look through here and see they're in alphabetical order. Like, for example, here's Arial. Who knows what bond schrift is? Let's see if it even works. It probably won't. Let's try it, though. Change my code, stop it running, run it again. Oh, it actually did. It's kind of a weird change, but it actually did work. Things like wingdings and webdings, which are like totally symbolically based, will not work, just so you're aware. I wonder if Papyrus is in here. To be honest, I don't know. I don't know what he would even be under, because I'm looking at it alphabetized and it's not showing up. Anyway, you can have a little bit of fun. Oh, I see. It would actually be kind of up here somewhere else. You can have some fun going through and experimenting with a bit of different fonts. However, once you finish the project, which again, what you're going to do is basically repeat this process 3 more times so that you have a total of 4 different G labels. All you have to do is make sure that the G label has a different name each time, that it has different text each time, a different position each time, a different color each time, and a different font each time. So you've got kind of a messy thing. Don't worry about trying to turn in the Hello World project yet. We will do that on Friday when I come back. However, after you finish the project, I would like for you to do the Hello World reflection assignment that you will also find on Canvas. That's just a little bit of a, well, reflection on this project. You're going to find that every project we do has a little reflection that comes afterwards where you just kind of analyze what you did. All right. Unfortunately, if you have any questions, I hope this video answered them because I can't really help you otherwise. You are allowed to work together if necessary. I don't want anyone doing your work for you, but if you get stuck with an error and somebody else can help, that would be great. Maybe go back and look through this video if you're having any issues, and if your issues are too catastrophic, well, we'll do it during Excel time or something. Don't panic. All right. I'm going to go ahead and let you all get to work and sign off right here. Thanks for watching.